Deadpool negative, still tilting, still in a lot of pain. I wanted to talk about, well, this is yet another Robert Kirkman book I'm reading. I'm really on to Kirkman these days. I mean, checking out Capes. I mean, I still have a lot of problems with the way he writes women, but, and like 20 years ago, I was not into him, but checking out Capes, checking out Transformers, and I checked out his, well, this is a co-creation, but he seems like very much the driver of it, Terminal. Now, you may have heard this as a new superhero series that's a collaboration between writers Kirkman and Robert Casey, not Robert Kirkman, excuse me, Joe Casey. You know, that guy we all thought was cool because we wanted Warren Ellis to think we were cool. He's a good writer, but let's be honest with ourselves. If Ellis didn't tell us to like him, I don't think he'd have much of a career. It is one of the oddest is like, it is one of the craziest books I ever read from either man. You can feel both their sensibilities in it. And I have a lot to say about it. I mean, is it a bad book? No. Is it a good book? I'm not sure. Am I recommending it? Yes. But I want to go back to the text piece at the back. Well, first, actually, before that, I should note that what Kirkman claims is he's going to have Andy Kubert, Arthur Adams, and David Finch as the rotating artists. Now, apparently, blind bags have been opened showing future issues drawn by Finch. I don't think he's going to be able to get 20 pages out of Arthur Adams. I think that's impossible in the year 2026. It was barely possible in the year 1986. If you get maybe if it's part of that, I always wondered there was a point where they were possibly going to introduce Longshot with Adams and Nocenti. Well, this is years and years ago. Kind of the reason Longshot joined the X-Men, but never happened. Anyway, what's interesting is all five members of all three artists and both writers are Center's creators. But again, you can feel definitely both Kirkman and Casey's sensibilities in it. Their need to take classic tropes and pull them apart. Now, I would say Kirkman is more of a traditionalist when it comes to the tropes, and Casey is more like a flip them on the side type. More of a sort of a Grant Morrison kind of. It's interesting because this is going to be a book unique to its own continuity. It's not connected to Invincible or Capes. It's kind of interesting because when I looked at Capes and Invincible back then, I always thought Kirkman was influenced more by Eric Larson's Savage Dragon than any other series. It's kind of forgotten but when they were announced, Invincible, Savage Dragon, and I believe a Todd DeZago, Craig Rizzo comic called Perhapanauts, but I could be wrong about that, and a short-lived Keith Giffen series called Dominion were all sort of be a shared universe. Dominion is actually going to be about aliens invading Australia and blowing everything up. Of course, this being a Keith Giffen comic, Dominion didn't make it past issue 2, so the shared universe thing was pretty quickly dropped. But Kirkman surprises me that the primary X-Men is not only just X-Men, but X-Men, the magical feeling the X-Men comics in the 90s had, from Extinction Agenda to Executioner Song to Age of Apocalypse to Onslaught. That's a monumental run of books to this day that has really never been equaled. An indisputably historic era of comics right there. I find it fascinating he feels that way about that run. That point in this, I felt just the opposite. I felt like editorial was straining straining and like taking all it could out of the creators, and like guys like Fabian Nicieza and Scott Lobdell, who are talented. Yes, I think Scott Lobdell is talented. Were pushed aside, and well, Lobdell was stuck around for quite a while. But it just felt completely editorial driven. It was very much the Bob Harras era of comics. And after, it was interesting because after Onslaught, Joe Casey entered the X universe with Cable, and he's spoken a lot about how editorial made that a difficult series for him. You know, like you can see, to write, and even though he enjoyed it, like editorial. So I just find that fascinating. Like I felt the X-Men franchise was being drained of blood, like it was being taken away. And I was not happy. I was not happy at all. But then the breaks. You stop reading the comic and you move on. It's just interesting. Like, I'm not saying Robert Kirkman has terrible taste, but it's interesting we had this completely opposite reactions. And I can see why he wants Casey to write this, because Casey knows how to write the X-Men. Kirkman, I think he's more influenced by by Eric Larson, and he has his own style of writing superhero that was never that like. I would say his Marvel work is sometimes better than a lot of the creator work because he had editors on it. Like I think Marvel Team Up is a great comic. But you know, he has his own sensibility. So this comic begins with this happening in a flashback. Then we flash forward to the present as a hero of the team, the Activators, who are told as the good guys, is murdered by someone named Imp. And Imp, who is a member of the evil, who were told the bad guys, the Awoken, tries to terminate a woman named Marilyn, whose sister luckily happens to be a member of the Activators. Her sister Ellie, who is a super strong woman called Crusher. You know, like if you're a fan of never been a huge fan of Kubert's design sensibilities, but this ain't too bad for what it's trying to do. So we find out, you know, again, it's not just X-Men comics I'm thinking of when I'm reading this. I'm thinking a lot of Image Comics, Wildcats. Like I said, Kirkman always felt like he was an influenced Image. You know, all these pieces kind of dumped in your lap in the first couple issues to tell this big, long story. And I thought it was very good. Like, I thought it reminds me a lot of Wildcats. You know, how you quote unquote covert action teams, you know, actually run the strange battle for the humanity that's been hidden from view. You know, with Casey involved, like it kind of makes the ideas wilder than it would be if they just called it Kirkman and Casey's Wildcats. Just Robert Kirkman's Wildcats. There's a piece of imagery in here that's so bizarre, that's kind of like so bizarre and yet so essential that it feels like, you know, something out of a Matt Fraction comic, which, you know, makes sense that Joe Casey worked on this book then. But what it really impressed me, it sets up like the most obvious plot direction, and the very last minute jerks the reader in the completely opposite direction. I mean, and I really did not see the big surprise coming. I should have. It's pretty obvious, but it was different. It was strange, and I think it made me think of all things Strike Force Richeri. But then again, the book's called Terminal. That's a clue right there. So something going on. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Again, it feels a lot. It feels a lot like X-Men, but it feels a lot like Wildcats. With the Carabin and the Damonites, and oh man, that mythology was pretty generic. Jim Lee may be a great artist, but he cannot come up with interesting ideas. He can come up with ideas, just not interesting ones. And it was also propulsive, well paced. I'm definitely tuning in for. I would say just read it, just to get to that surprise, because I mean, it shows that like Kirkman and Casey aren't just trying to be the X-Men; they're trying to be their own thing, and it's open ended. And again, hopefully, he'll be able to get Adams and Finch to get their work in on time. Finch's last collaboration with Kirkman had no late issues. Kubert's shown he's able to at least draw 4 issues in a row in 2026. But other than that, like, really give it a shot. You won't find a superhero comic quite like it on the market right now. Um, anyway, that's me for now, and we'll talk to you all later. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.